Hey guys. Tonight we're rolling down the windows of history's weirdest jalopy and taking a deep, slightly dangerous breath. Welcome to the wild, gasoline-scented world of 1970s suburban childhood. This is a tale of kids who survived playgrounds made from sharpened metal, parents who thought helmets were for astronauts, and yes, the baffling moment in American culture when huffing gasoline behind a 7-Eleven was just a normal Tuesday. So before you pass out from nostalgia or fumes, take a second to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your favorite or least favorite 1970s smell, but only if you actually enjoy this. No pressure. Seriously, if you grew up inhaling the exhaust of a Ford Pinto, you deserve comfort, not demands. Now, dim those lava lamps, put a box fan on for maximum ASMR, and sprawl out on that avocado green shag carpet. Get comfortable, but keep your feet away from the beanbag chair. Someone probably spilled something in there. Let's ask the big questions. What was it like to be a kid in an era when every household item doubled as a potential hazard? Was there really a summer where every flavor of popsicle was leaded? Why did no one ever drink water, only Tang and Tab from rusty garden hoses? Did anyone actually read warning labels? Or were they considered optional, like turn signals? Would you survive a single day in the land of unsupervised bike rides, questionable science projects, and that one friend's house that always smelled like wet dog and gasoline? Congratulations. You've just woken up in 1977. The air smells faintly of gasoline, hot vinyl, and grass clippings. The future is analog, the ice cream trucks coming down the street, and you have no sunscreen, no phone, and no sense of danger. Good luck. The sun blasts through your single-pane window, and you wake up in a room painted a shade of orange, not found in nature. There's shag carpet underfoot, the faint whir of a Sears box fan in the window, and the comforting hum of a house that probably has 100 feet of aluminum wiring. Your breakfast is a bowl of pure sugar masquerading as cereal, topped with milk, delivered in glass bottles. No one asks if you slept well. Sleep is for communists. There's no gentle wake-up routine, no sound bath, no mindfulness meditation, just the thudding realization that you exist in a house where everything is a little bit flammable. The smell in the air is a cocktail of ozone, dust, and last night's fried bologna. Something both comforting and faintly suspicious. You reach for your alarm clock, a squat, plastic cube with red LED numbers, already slightly melted from years of proximity to your desk lamp. The alarm doesn't play birdsong or gentle rain. It blasts you awake with the force of a nuclear alert, a noise designed to ensure you startle, roll off the bed, and land face first in the beige, high-pile carpet. You glance around. Your bedroom is decorated in a theme best described as mid-century fever dream. Posters of Evel Knievel and Farrah Fawcett compete for space with decals that peel off if you breathe too hard. Every surface is a texture. The wallpaper is fuzzy, the dresser is faux wood grain, and your pillow smells faintly of that time you got a nosebleed during the $6 Million Man. Nothing matches, but everything makes sense. Down the hall, your parents are already up. Your dad is half-dressed, balancing a coffee mug the size of a hubcap, mumbling about the price of gas. Your mom is reading a paperback romance while stirring a pot of instant coffee with a spoon that probably came free with the last fill-up. The coffee is dark enough to eat through a spoon, but that's just how it's done. In this house, breakfast is a solo sport. You pour yourself a bowl of cereal with a mascot that looks like it's been up all night. The flakes are frosted, the marshmallows are suspiciously crunchy, and the box assures you that it's part of a balanced breakfast, which means it comes with milk and a vague sense of guilt. You eat perched at a formica table, legs swinging, eyes fixed on a television playing cartoons at a volume that would rattle windows in modern houses. There's no remote. Changing the channel requires commitment and, sometimes, pliers. The TV is an actual piece of furniture, so heavy it could survive a tornado or a sibling argument. Commercials promise you a world of plastic toys and breakfast pastries that double as science experiments. Meanwhile, the house is waking up around you. Siblings emerge from bedrooms smelling of old crayons and adolescent rebellion. Someone is already arguing about who used all the hot water. The dog is licking something unmentionable off the kitchen linoleum, and the cat is plotting to knock over your cereal as soon as you get up. The doorbell rings, but it's just the neighbor's kid, ready to swap baseball cards and questionable life advice. Your chores list is taped to the fridge with a magnet advertising lawn care. Today's mission: water the plants, feed the dog, and don't let the house burn down. You nod solemnly, understanding the stakes. And as you head out the door, sneakers untied, hair unbrushed, you breathe in the crisp morning air, a mixture of cut grass, gasoline, and the distant tang of leaded paint. You are officially ready to face the day, sugared, sunburned, and slightly radioactive. Welcome to the 1970s. If you make it to lunchtime with all your fingers and most of your dignity, you're ahead of the game. You pour yourself a heap of Fruit Loops, probably out of a box with a free toy inside, a choking hazard with every bite. Your parents are somewhere, possibly reading the paper, possibly outside smoking. No one is watching you. The dog is under the table, waiting for you to drop something toxic. Orange juice tastes vaguely like the metal can it came in. The best part? Nobody here has ever heard of organic. There's a strange freedom in breakfast when you're the only one in charge. No one's checking your blood sugar, no one's measuring out portions, and certainly no one is judging you for adding a fourth spoonful of sugar to your already sugar-laden cereal. The kitchen is your kingdom. There are no gluten-free options, unless you count the time you dropped a bagel on the floor and the dog got to it first. The countertops are a graveyard of breadcrumbs and sticky jelly fingerprints, evidence of countless unsupervised mornings. Your sibling appears briefly to claim the last slice of Wonder Bread. Slather it with enough peanut butter to stop a small animal's heart, and vanish again into the glowing den of Saturday morning cartoons. The only law here is don't use all the milk. And even that's more of a polite suggestion. You consider your drink options. Tang powder mixed at random strength, grape juice from concentrate, or maybe Sunny D if you're feeling fancy. The orange juice sits in a tall can in the back of the fridge, opened with a tool that leaves metal shards around the rim for added excitement. You pour carefully, watching as the juice, somehow both bitter and sweet, fills your cup with a suspicious shimmer. There are floaties in it. You drink it anyway. Somewhere in the background, a radio croons top 40 hits, interspersed with the local DJ's weather forecast and urgent reminders about lawn fertilizer. The news comes in brief, matter-of-fact sentences. Gas is expensive. Weather's going to be hot. The Yankees are winning. And there's a recall on something you definitely already ate. Nobody panics. If you made it through last week's peanut butter scare, you'll make it through this. You rifle through the cereal boxes, each one promising a toy at the bottom or a maze on the back. Nutrition information is printed in a tiny, ignorable font. You're here for the games, not the vitamins. Once, you found a plastic whistle inside a box of Captain Crunch. You blew it for a week until your parents hid it, only for the dog to find and destroy it. That's the cycle of life in the kitchen. The dog is still underfoot, tail wagging in anticipation. You drop a Cheerio, and he snaps it up with the reflexes of a ninja. He's the unofficial vacuum cleaner a furry insurance policy against spills. If you drop something less edible, a rubber band, a Lego, he eats it anyway. Survival of the fittest, even among pets. Your parents drift in and out. Maybe your mum appears to remind you to turn off the toaster, then disappears with a mug of Sanka. Your dad, shuffling in slippers, checks the oil in the car and re-emerges to mutter about taxes or the neighbor's lawn. They trust you. Or, more realistically, they're busy. In the 1970s, if your breakfast didn't kill you, it was considered balanced. You eat standing up, reading the back of the cereal box for the 100th time, mouth full of Technicolor sugar rings. The phone rings, the mail slot clangs, and somewhere a neighbor starts his lawnmower before 8 a.m. This is the soundtrack of your autonomy. You finish breakfast and leave the dishes in the sink. A problem for future you. The day stretches ahead, filled with unsupervised possibilities and minimal hand washing. The only certainty is that you'll be hungry again by 10, ready to do it all over. Because in this house, breakfast is as unsupervised as it is unforgettable. Your brother's weapon of choice is a Tonka truck. Your sister's, a Barbie missing 3 limbs. There are no referees in this domestic thunderdome. You plot alliances, double crosses, and kitchen ambushes, fueled entirely by sugar and spite. Parental intervention is rare, and usually involves a wooden spoon or a threat to turn this car around. The moment breakfast ends, a hush settles over the house, a Cold War silence, tense and strategic. You eye each other over the rim of plastic juice glasses, evaluating strengths, weaknesses, and the current balance of power. Every sibling knows peace is just the uneasy truce before the next betrayal. The stakes are high. At any moment, a minor insult could ignite the battle of the hallway. A conflict fought with hairbrushes, couch cushions, and whatever projectiles happen to be at hand. You form and dissolve alliances faster than a banana turns brown. Sometimes you and your brother unite against your older sister, her Barbie's disembodied head held aloft as a warning. Other times, it's you and your sister plotting a midnight raid on the secret stash of Halloween candy he's hidden in his underwear drawer. Double crosses are standard practice. Yesterday's best friend is today's arch nemesis. And all it takes is a stray elbow at the cereal table to tip the scales. The kitchen is a battlefield. Someone always wants the last toaster waffle. Spoons vanish mysteriously. You blame your brother. He blames the dog. The dog blames gravity. The prize cereal is up for grabs, and only the strongest, or the sneakiest, prevail. You develop skills the CIA would envy. Silent footfalls, coded whispers, and the art of snatching a Pop-Tart without being detected. Every victory is short-lived. Every defeat is met with vows of revenge. Mid-morning brings the covert snack operation. You tiptoe into the kitchen, scanning for siblings like a Cold War spy in enemy territory. You reach for the cookie jar, only to discover it's booby-trapped, stacked with marbles, or a strategically placed pile of Legos waiting to expose your position. Once, your sister rigged the fridge with a string of bells. You open it, and the house erupts like NORAD at DEFCON 1. Game over. Sometimes, hostilities break into the open. There are skirmishes over television rights, epic arm wrestling contests, and the annual fight over who gets to sit in the front seat on road trips. The front seat, of course, is not just a seat, it's a throne of power, a place where you can control the radio, the windows, and the all-important privilege of shotgun. The loser resigns themselves to the sticky back seat and spends the journey plotting a coup. No one is immune. Even pets are drafted into the conflict. Cats become unwilling messengers. Dogs are bribed with table scraps to take your side. A well-timed bark can derail your sibling's entire operation. Occasionally, truces are called. Usually, this is when snacks are involved, or when you all need to unite against a greater threat. Like the neighbor kid who borrows your best baseball without asking. Parents watch from a distance, resigned to the chaos. When things get out of hand, a wooden spoon is brandished, not used, just flashed as a symbol of parental authority, the way a king might rattle a jeweled scepter. Sometimes the threat is even more dire. I will turn this car around. You never believe them, but you quiet down just in case. Briefly, order is restored, and yet, in the thick of battle, there's a weird sense of camaraderie. Your enemies today will be your co-conspirators tomorrow. You learn the delicate art of compromise, the necessity of forgiveness, and the importance of hiding your best treasures in places no sibling would dare search, like behind the vacuum or in the cold, clammy depths of the basement freezer. By noon, hostilities have cooled. Truces are struck. You band together, united by hunger or a mutual enemy. Chores. But make no mistake, the war resumes at dinner. Sibling warfare is eternal, and every scar, every inside joke, every battle cry, shouted across a sunlit hallway, is just another chapter in the epic, ridiculous saga of growing up together. Shoes? Optional. Sunscreen? Imaginary. You're outside before noon, barefoot in the dew, skin already cooking. The lawn is a battlefield. Hidden dog bombs, rusty tools, and mysterious puddles await. The only safety rule is, don't bleed in the house. The front door slams behind you, and instantly the outside world is yours. The sun is already hot enough to melt the plastic slide in the backyard. But you don't care. You navigate barefoot across grass that alternates between suspiciously spongy and sharp as broken dreams. Every step is a gamble. Will it be a bee, a sharp stick, or the ancient, petrified remains of a forgotten toy? Either way, it's character building. The neighborhood is alive with the buzz of lawnmowers and the distant shrieks of other unsupervised children. Your mom occasionally peers out the window, squinting into the daylight, and then decides you look fine. If you're missing a shoe or a shirt, that's just part of the experience. A little dirt is expected. A lot of dirt is a sign you're having fun. In the driveway, your bike is waiting. Banana seat, rusty chain, and handlebars wrapped in tape that's seen better days. Helmets exist, but mostly as a rumor. You mount up, speed wobbling down the sidewalk, swerving to avoid potholes, loose gravel, and the neighbor's inexplicably aggressive goose. There are no hand signals. You communicate by yelling "move" and hoping for the best. You venture deeper into the wilds of suburbia. The street is your runway, and every kid for 3 blocks is outside, inventing new games, establishing complex and rapidly changing rules. There's kickball in the middle of the street, interrupted only by the occasional car, a massive boat of a vehicle driven by someone who honks, waves, and then disappears, leaving the road to you once again. You resume play as if nothing happened. Near misses are just part of the afternoon. Every backyard is a different ecosystem. There's the family with the above-ground pool, its water an electrifying shade of blue thanks to enough chlorine to kill a bear. Next door is a swing set that creaks ominously with every pass. But you still fight for a turn. Somewhere, someone is organizing an epic squirt gun battle, which inevitably devolves into a water hose free for all. If the hose has been in the sun, the first spray is near boiling, but you learn quickly lessons in fluid dynamics and second-degree burns, all before lunchtime. Plants are not always friendly. The bushes that line the yard are filled with thorns. The dandelions are fair game for snacks. If you're feeling brave, And there's always one patch of poison ivy nobody will admit to knowing about until it's too late. If you get stung by a bee, you handle it the old-fashioned way. Wail, run inside, get an ice cube, and go right back out. Stings, scrapes, and bruises are a currency all their own. Neighborhood animals add to the excitement. The dog from 2 doors down has escaped again, galloping across yards like a furry outlaw. Cats stalk silently through the grass, always just out of reach. Occasionally, a possum or raccoon is spotted, sending everyone scrambling onto picnic tables, convinced you're witnessing nature's most dangerous predator. Lunchtime comes and goes, but you only head inside for a sandwich, eating it on the porch with hands still grimy from mud pies and tree climbing. You spot a cloud that looks vaguely like Darth Vader, point it out, and immediately spark an argument about whether clouds can look like anything at all. That's science. 1970s style. As the sun climbs higher, the air gets thick with humidity and the scent of cut grass and distant charcoal. You're sweating, sunburned and vaguely itchy, but the outdoors is still calling. There are fences to climb, friends to find, mysteries to solve, like who left the garden hose running. And why does the air always smell faintly of gasoline? The only thing that finally pulls you inside is the sound of your mom calling for dinner. You check your feet, black with dirt, possibly bleeding. You shrug. As long as you don't bleed in the house, you've survived another day in the great outdoors. Mild peril, major adventure. Just another perfect summer. The local playground is a monument to child-proofing's total absence. The slide is made of metal, gets hot enough to sear ham, and terminates directly onto asphalt. There's a merry-go-round, designed to teach centrifugal force and vomiting. Every injury is a lesson. Every scar, a merit badge. You arrive with no adult in sight and zero safety equipment. Just scabbed knees, a pocket full of gravel, and blind optimism. The air smells like sun-baked mulch, dry rubber, and one of those neighborhood kids who refuses to bathe during summer. A chain-link fence surrounds the park, not to protect you from danger, but to keep danger conveniently contained. The first thing you see is the slide, glinting in the sun like a medieval torture device. It's made of solid steel and engineered by someone who clearly wanted children to feel humility. Climbing the ladder is an act of faith. Each rung burns your hands like a branding iron, but you keep going, because quitting is worse than injury. At the top, you take a deep breath and launch yourself down, only to immediately regret your life choices. It's less of a slide and more of a controlled descent into second-degree burns, and the realization that asphalt does not cushion impact. Then there's the swing set. No soft rubber seats here, just 2 chains and a chunk of hard black plastic that somehow pinches your thighs and smells like ozone. You pump your legs furiously, trying to launch yourself into orbit, only to be flung out sideways when your brother accidentally walks too close and clips your trajectory. You land in the gravel. It tastes like disappointment and old pennies. The seesaw is a trust exercise doomed to fail. You find a partner and begin the delicate dance of weight balance. All is well, until one of you jumps off without warning. The other side slams into the ground with the kind of force that rearranges your spine. You don't cry. You just glare at your former ally and whisper, "You'll pay for this." The merry-go-round is a marvel of poor judgment and physics. Someone spins it as hard as they can while the rest of you cling to the bars like Titanic survivors. The world becomes a blur of motion, screams, and the vague threat of airborne vomit. Someone flies off and lands in a bush. You laugh first, then check to make sure they're moving. They are, sort of, good enough. There's a jungle gym shaped like a cube, rusted at the corners, and hotter than the surface of Venus. You climb it anyway, because it's there, and your 70% ego and 30% blood sugar crash. From the top, you can see everything. The other kids, the ice cream truck on the horizon, and your siblings sneaking the last Capri Sun from your backpack. The betrayal stings. So does the metal bar under your kneecap. Nearby is the sandbox, which in theory is a place of imaginative joy, but in practice is full of cigarette butts, cat poop, and someone's lost retainer. You dig for treasure. You find a half-melted army man and the remains of a popsicle stick sword. Success. Eventually, a parent wanders by, not to supervise, but to light a cigarette and make sure no one's actively bleeding from the head. "You kids all right?" they call out. You give a thumbs up while holding back tears and a broken shoelace. By the time the sun begins to dip, you're scraped, sunburned, and riding high on a cocktail of adrenaline and Capri Sunday. You limp home with gravel embedded in your palms and asphalt rash on your shins. Your mum asks what happened. You shrug. Just the playground. She nods knowingly. No further explanation needed. Because in the 1970s, the playground wasn't just a place to play. It was a rite of passage, a poorly maintained coliseum where children battled gravity, each other, and the structural integrity of welded steel. And if you made it home with all your teeth, well, that was just a bonus. You and your friends gather your loose change, pedal your bikes helmetless, and arrive at 7-Eleven, land of Slurpees, comic books, and unidentifiable odors. The parking lot is where legends are made, and apparently gasoline is huffed. You don't know why. Someone heard it makes you see colors. The moment you coast into the parking lot, the air changes. It's a little hotter, a little more chaotic, and somehow smells like hot rubber, wet cardboard, and 35-year-old nacho cheese. You lay your bike down on the curb like a true outlaw. Kickstands are for rich kids and Hallmark movies. You're here with purpose, your pockets jangling with nickels, dimes, and that one Canadian penny you can't get rid of. The 7-Eleven door opens with a jingle that might as well be a sacred bell. Inside, it's fluorescent, frigid, and overwhelming. The carpet is sticky. The aisles are narrow. The man behind the counter looks like he's been working there since the moon landing and does not care if you're a child or a raccoon with a coin purse. Just don't steal the batteries. Your first stop is the Slurpee machine. It towers above you like a temple of artificial flavor and partially frozen corn syrup. The flavors are always slightly off from what the label promises. Blue raspberry tastes like liquefied electric wires. Cola has hints of despair. Mystery flavor may actually be windshield fluid. You mix them all together anyway. The goal isn't good taste, it's maximum brain freeze. Next, the snack aisle. Every shelf is a test of willpower. Doritos, pork rinds, Funyuns, off-brand gummy worms, and jerky so dry it qualifies as a building material. You stare at everything, weighing your options like a Wall Street analyst. You have exactly $1.38, and you plan to spend it all. You leave with a tiny bag of chips, a Charleston chew that will chip a molar, and one of those sour candies that doubles as chemical warfare. Then there's the comic rack, spinning slowly near the back of the store like the gateway to another dimension. The covers are bold, the story's dramatic, and the pages already smudged from 100 grimy fingers before yours. You flip through a Spider-Man issue, pretending you're reading it before buying, but really, you're just hoping the clerk doesn't notice you're on your fourth free read. Outside, the parking lot has transformed into a summer proving ground. Someone's doing wheelies. Someone else is attempting to trade half a Slurpee for a baseball card. It smells like exhaust and melting bubble gum. There's always that one kid who somehow got an entire burrito and won't stop talking about it. And then there's the gas. Not the metaphorical kind, the actual kind. The pump handles are cracked. The metal is warm to the touch. And someone, inevitably, suggests taking a sniff. You know it's a bad idea. You do it anyway. The smell is instantly horrifying and weirdly pleasant, like a chemical cousin of nostalgia. You cough, your eyes water, and for 3 seconds you see the future. It looks a lot like this, but with slightly better Slurpee flavors. There's a brief moment of panic when the clerk sticks his head out and yells, "Hey, you kids better not be sniffing again." You scatter like squirrels. Someone drops their candy. Someone else tips over a bike. But within seconds, you're all pedaling away, Slurpees in hand, freedom in your hearts. As you ride off into the shimmering heat, you feel like you've touched the edge of something sacred. You were there. You conquered the 7-Eleven. You flirted with chemical danger, bought candy with exact change, and maybe, just maybe, became a little more powerful, because in the 1970s, the local 7-Eleven wasn't just a convenience store, it was a portal, a sugar-soaked, neon-lit, barely regulated utopia of chaos. And you were its most loyal disciple. There's a primal allure to the scent of gasoline, the forbidden perfume of the American dream. Nobody really understands it, but everyone's secretly a face connoisseur. Was it the promise of mobility, or just the quickest way to a mild headache? Scientists are still baffled. Probably. You're standing next to the gas pump, bike laid haphazardly on the curb, and there it is. That sharp, sweet, strangely satisfying scent wafting through the summer air. Your friend's dad is filling up his truck, cigarette dangling from his lip. Because fire safety is more of a guideline than a law. You pretend not to notice the existential risk. You're too focused on that smell. Gasoline wasn't just fuel, it was a vibe, a rite of passage, a cologne for machinery. It clung to your dad's clothes after he mowed the lawn and lingered on the garage floor like a ghost from last weekend's failed chainsaw repair. You'd catch a whiff and think, this is what power smells like. Not authority or influence, but horsepower, torque, adventure in liquid form. The weirdest part? It wasn't even pleasant in the traditional sense. It was sharp, acrid. It burned, slightly in your nose. But somehow you loved it. It was chemical nostalgia, the aroma of road trips that hadn't happened yet, and lawnmowers that barely ran. Gasoline meant something was about to begin. It was potential, pressurized, and ready to explode. Sometimes, literally. You weren't the only one. Everyone had that one friend who took a longer than normal sniff at the pump and whispered, "I like it." No one judged them. You just nodded in solemn agreement. You all liked it. It was the glue of suburban childhoods, along with rubber cement, fresh tennis balls, and the scent of new plastic action figures. If a candle company made a 1978 childhood scent, it would be 80% gasoline and 20% Crayola. Even car rides had their moment. You'd climb into a sun-baked station wagon and inhale a potent cocktail of hot vinyl, old upholstery, and faint fuel vapor leaking in through a mystery crack in the floorboard. You wouldn't just breathe it, you'd marinate in it. Seat belts smelled like gasoline. Backpacks smelled like gasoline. Your jeans smelled like gasoline. It was a miracle anyone made it out of that decade with fully functioning brain cells. At gas stations, you lingered while the grown-ups filled up. You'd stare at the rotating numbers on the analog pump, mesmerized. A gallon of gas was under $1. A concept so absurd now it might as well have been free. While your parents argued about octane ratings, you were off sniffing the air like a hound at a barbecue. Of course, every neighborhood had the tale. My cousin's friend sniffed too much gas and thinks he's a duck now. If you breathe it in too long, your eyebrows fall off. Urban legends mixed with cautionary tales, all designed to stop you, but they never did. You were too far gone, not addicted, just curious. The fascination wasn't without peril. There were moments, a light-headed spin, a sudden headache, that made you step back and think, maybe that was too much. But by then, you'd already climbed back on your bike, exhilarated by nothing more than fumes and freedom. To this day, the smell still hits you in a parking lot or near a weed whacker, and for a split second, you're 9 again. No phone, no helmet, no clue, just you, a warm summer breeze, and the distant sound of a screen door slamming shut somewhere behind you. Because in the 1970s, gasoline wasn't just a fuel, it was a lifestyle. It filled your lungs, your afternoons, and your memories. And while nobody recommends sniffing it anymore, probably for good reason, there's no denying that it was, and remains, the weirdest comfort smell in history. Sniff responsibly. Let's be clear. Nobody had YouTube to warn them. A friend's older brother, wearing a Judas Priest t-shirt, says you can get lightheaded by sniffing gas. You try it once. It smells terrible, tastes worse, and everyone laughs until someone almost faints. The adventure ends when the store manager comes out and threatens to call your mom. This is the golden age of unfiltered information, by which we mean none at all. There's no WebMD, no science teacher who really cares, and certainly no warning labels bold enough to override the persuasive power of an older kid with a mustache and a boombox. You don't know what's in gasoline. You assume it's just gas, maybe a little fire juice, definitely something exciting. And so begins the suburban rite of passage. Group idiocy, proudly performed in the parking lot behind 7-Eleven. The process is simple. One kid unscrews the cap from the pump with ceremonial flair. Another grabs a paper towel, why, you're not sure, and pretends it's for safety. You all gather around like witches at a cauldron, ready for enlightenment or asphyxiation, whichever comes first. You take a deep breath and immediately regret every decision that led to this moment. It doesn't feel like getting lightheaded. It feels like licking the underside of a lawnmower while someone yells in your ear. Your vision swirls. The world tilts slightly to the left. Somewhere nearby, someone burps up a grape Slurpee and mutters, "Whoa." That's when it becomes clear this isn't about euphoria. It's about peer pressure, confusion, and the kind of summer boredom so powerful it could be weaponized by the Pentagon. The science of it? You wouldn't know. Something about hydrocarbons and brain cells doing the cha-cha right out the door. But at the time, the only science that matters is that Brad says it works. And Brad once got sent home for wearing a belt made of cigarette lighters. So obviously, he's an expert. One kid huffs for a solid 6 seconds and then sits down hard on the curb, blinking at the sun like a baked iguana. "I think I saw sounds," he says, which makes perfect sense at the time. Things escalate. Someone suggests huffing out of a soda cup. Another kid dares you to try the lawnmower gas can at home. That's the thing about unsupervised childhood. Bad ideas don't just happen. They evolve. The moment of reckoning comes when Mr. Gianetti, the night shift manager with the patience of a sandpapered saint, rounds the corner with a mop and a frown. He doesn't yell. He doesn't have to. He just squints at you through his mustache and says, "Does your mother know you're back here inhaling flammable stupidity?" The group disperses in an instant, scattering like moths before the fluorescent light of authority. You jump on your bike, heartbeat in your throat, convinced that somewhere, somehow, Your mum has already been notified via telepathy and is preparing the talk. Later that night, your head's still buzzing slightly. You lie awake wondering if your brain is leaking. Your pillow smells faintly of Slurpee and fear. You promise yourself you'll never do it again, at least not until someone dares you harder. Because this is the suburban circle of life, a strange blend of recklessness, folklore, and mild concussions. You didn't huff to rebel. You huffed because someone said it made you feel weird. And weird was all you had to look forward to between cartoons and school starting back up. In the end, no one gets hurt. Mostly. You survive with a sore throat, a lecture about brain damage, and a permanent note in your personal mythos. Tried huffing once. Didn't like it. Still cooler than Chad. And that, friends, is the science of the 70s. Trial, error, regret, repeat. Where are the adults? Somewhere between just don't set the house on fire and come back by dark. Parental supervision is a spectrum, ranging from reading Reader's Digest on the porch to out back with a can of Schlitz. You could be in another state by noon and nobody would notice until dinner. The 70s parent was an enigma, sometimes present, sometimes merely theoretical. They were there, sure, but not always available. You could walk into the kitchen covered in mud, holding a dead frog, and they'd glance over from the newspaper and ask, "Did you finish your chores?" Not, "Why is there a frog in the blender?" Just a vague concern about whether you'd swept the garage. It's not that they didn't care. It's that caring looked different back then. Their parenting style could best be described as benign neglect with a touch of luck. You were expected to figure things out on your own, bandage your own wounds, make your own sandwiches, and learn not to put metal in the microwave through painful trial and error. A typical summer day began with a groggy adult handing you a toaster pastry and a vague directive like, "Go outside." No instructions, no sunscreen, no plan, just out. They didn't want to know what you were doing, as long as it didn't involve setting anything on fire, which, to be fair, you only did twice. If they were watching you, they were doing it from behind a curtain, coffee in hand, occasionally peeking out to make sure no one was bleeding. They were masters of passive surveillance. Occasionally, a voice would call out from a cracked window, "Knock it off," despite no clear indication they knew what it was. Your mum might be at home, chain-smoking Virginia Slims while watching a soap opera with a plotline so complicated it required charts. Your dad, likely under a car in the driveway, half his body swallowed by the family station wagon, emerging only to yell, "Hand me the wrench," and then cuss when you gave him a screwdriver. And while you were launching yourself off ramps made from plywood and cinder blocks, your parents were doing very adult things, like mowing the lawn in jorts, debating inflation, or trying to open a beer with a pair of pliers. If you came back bleeding, their response was practical. Run it underwater. You're fine. You could have walked in with a squirrel bite and a rusty nail still embedded in your foot, and they'd respond with, "Rub some Bactine on it and don't track mud in the house." Dinner was the most consistent time they were fully aware of your existence. They'd ask if you got into any trouble, a phrase which could mean anything from breaking a neighbor's window to being chased by geese. You'd shrug, they'd nod. That was the report. The truth is, they weren't oblivious. They were just preoccupied with keeping the house from collapsing and paying the mortgage on a single income. Modern parenting apps didn't exist. There was no Find My Kid feature. The only tracking system they used was word-of-mouth gossip from other parents or the occasional phone call from Mrs. Johnson down the street saying, "Your boy's in my tree again." And yet, somehow, it worked. You survived. Mostly intact. with just enough independence to build confidence and just enough chaos to keep your therapist employed. Looking back, it wasn't that they didn't love you. They did. They just showed it by letting you learn, stumble, and occasionally fall into a trash can trying to impress your friends. That was love in the 1970s. Loud, distracted, slightly buzzed, but always there when it mattered. And if you were ever really in trouble, like emergency room and tetanus shot kind of trouble, they'd drop everything, hop in the wood-paneled wagon, and scoop you up. They were distracted, not heartless. So the next time your GPS blips, your kid sends you a text, or you hand them an organic snack with 73 vitamins, just remember, your parents raised you on Kool-Aid, chaos, and pure vibes. And somehow you made it. Your main mode of transportation is a 10-speed Schwinn with a banana seat and brakes that only work when the planets align. No helmet, no reflective tape, just raw courage and a healthy disregard for traffic laws. You learn road safety from near misses and creative swearing. Your bike isn't just a vehicle. It's your first taste of freedom. A rust-speckled steed with faded streamers and a playing card, clothes pinned to the back wheel so it sounds vaguely like a motorcycle if you squint and believe hard enough. The tires are underinflated. The chain slips every third pedal, and the seat smells faintly of mildew and summer sweat. It is perfect. You ride without a helmet because, well, nobody does. Helmets are something you wear when you play football or fall off a cliff, not when you're riding to 7-Eleven to buy Big League Chew. Besides, if you did wear one, you'd be mocked so viciously by your peers that you'd have to move to another district. The closest thing to protective gear is a sweatband around your wrist and a fresh scab on your knee. You launch from the driveway with a burst of speed and zero regard for posted speed limits. The handlebars wobble slightly. There's a squeak you've learned to ignore. You barrel down the street, dodging potholes, parked cars, and the occasional squirrel having a midlife crisis. Stop signs are suggestions. Crosswalks are myths. You've never used a hand signal in your life, unless flipping off your older sibling counts. The road is your playground, and every block is a new frontier. You race your friends, no rules, just raw survival instinct. First one to the end of the cul-de-sac wins. The winner gets bragging rights. The loser eats gravel. You take turns so sharp you nearly launch into orbit, your back wheel skidding like a low-budget action scene. It's exhilarating. It's dangerous. It's childhood in motion. You ride through sprinklers, puddles, and the occasional cloud of bug spray. Your shoelace gets caught in the chain, and you coast to a slow, dramatic crash in someone's front yard. No one helps you up. They just point and laugh. You laugh too, because that's the code. Pain is temporary. Street cred is forever. Sometimes you wander far, like really far. One time, you and your crew made it 3 towns over because someone thought they saw a new arcade near a bowling alley. Your parents didn't know. The only thing guiding you home was the position of the sun and the scent of your neighbor grilling hot dogs. Somehow, you always made it back. You develop a 6th sense for traffic. You can hear a Buick coming 2 blocks away. You learn to swerve around grates, glass, and roadkill without breaking stride. You learn to time your ride through intersections like you're in a 70s spy film. Sometimes, it feels like the road is trying to kill you, and you pedal faster just to see if it can catch up. And the crashes? Inevitable. There's always at least one wipeout per week, usually when someone dares you to take a shortcut over a steep hill or build a ramp out of plywood and hubris. You fly, briefly. You land, not so briefly. You limp home with a bloody elbow and a new story. Your mum doesn't panic. She just hands you a Band-Aid and tells you to walk it off. Your bike is everything. Your freedom, your rebellion, your chariot of questionable engineering. It rattles and groans and sometimes throws you off, but you love it anyway. You don't need gears that shift properly or brakes that respond under pressure. All you need is a bit of balance, a push from gravity, and a total disregard for common sense. Because in the 70s, a kid on a bike wasn't just going somewhere, they were becoming someone. One terrifying, exhilarating, skinned knee ride at a time. Thirsty? Just grab the nearest garden hose and hope it hasn't been marinating in the sun all day. The water is lukewarm and tastes like rubber, metal, and last week's fertilizer. It's fine. If you're still thirsty, drink from someone else's hose and compare flavor notes. This is hydration, 1970s style. No filtered bottles, no electrolyte powders, no BPA-free plastic engineered by Swiss scientists. Just a cracked green hose, coiled like a lazy snake on the lawn, steaming gently in the midday Sunday. The nozzle is stuck. The water pressure is questionable. And yet, it's the only beverage that tastes like childhood and mild risk. You approach it like an archaeologist defusing a trap. First, shake out any spiders. Second, give it a test squirt to check for the telltale brown blast of hose water that's been aging like a fine wine in the tube since morning. You wait, listening to the sputter and cough of the line before that first gush shoots out, scalding your hand and baptizing the grass. Then, the moment of truth. You hunch over, push the nozzle open with your thumb, and gulp. It is, without fail, disgusting. It tastes like rubber gloves dipped in pennies and left in a bucket of pool water. There's a distinct hint of grass clippings and maybe a top note of bug carcass. And yet it's somehow refreshing. You pass it to your friend. They make a face. Yours tastes weird. You shrug and swap hoses with the kid across the street. His water tastes like old copper pipes and faint regret. Delicious. This is how you learned the subtle art of hydration roulette. Every hose had a personality. Some were fast and furious, with a pressure so strong it could waterboard a raccoon. Others dribbled lazily like a faucet in mourning. Some sprayed sideways for no reason. One kid's hose had a twist in the middle, which meant it would suddenly straighten out and blast whoever stood nearby. That's how you learned never to stand downstream of the nozzle. And still, you drank, because the idea of going inside and asking for a glass of water felt like surrender, like admitting weakness. Indoors was for chores. Outdoors was for drinking mystery fluid from questionable tubing and pretending you were a cowboy surviving in the wilderness. The only ice you knew was the stuff you chipped off the freezer tray with a butter knife. Parents never stopped you, they encouraged it. There's a hose out back, they'd say, as if that answered all hydration needs forever. And it did. It was free, immediate, and came with a side of minor danger. Sometimes you'd spray it in the air and run through it, instantly transforming the water source into a makeshift sprinkler. The lawn got watered, your clothes got soaked, and your shoes made that weird squelching sound for the next 2 hours. If you were especially bold, you'd aim the hose at your sibling, initiating a full-blown backyard water war with no rules, no mercy, and one broken garden gnome casualty. Hose water was more than a drink. It was a lifestyle, a shared experience, a seasonal ritual. The taste wasn't good, but it was yours. It didn't matter that you might have just ingested trace amounts of lead, or whatever hose manufacturers were using before regulations caught up. If it came from a hose, it had to be safe. Probably, hopefully, to this day, nothing quite tastes like hose water. It's the flavor of sunburned shoulders, grass stains, and yelling car, in the middle of a street-side soccer game. It's that first gulp after riding your bike until your legs went numb. It's the weird comfort of knowing that if you could survive, that you could survive anything. So go ahead. Raise a metaphorical glass to the green serpent of childhood. Because in the 1970s, water wasn't filtered. It was earned, and it tasted like summer. Snacks are a sacred ritual. You reach for Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and whatever's lurking in the pantry. Everything is shelf-stable, bright neon, and probably illegal in Europe. You wash it down with Kool-Aid mixed at a 10:1 sugar-to-water ratio. The pantry is your portal to another dimension, one filled with cellophane-wrapped treasures and mystery boxes that somehow survive nuclear winters and sibling raids. You open the creaky door and are greeted by a wall of crinkly plastic cartoon mascots and enough preservatives to mummify a steer. Your hand hovers over your options. The stakes are high. You only get one shot before someone else claims the last ding-dong. You go for the Little Debbie shelf. It's a lawless zone. There are snack cakes, oatmeal creme pies, larger than your face, and Swiss rolls that are technically edible but emotionally life-affirming. You unwrap it with the reverence of a sacred artifact and take a bite of something that is equal parts sugar, memory, and industrial lubricant. The texture? Soft, spongy, confusing. The flavor? Pure nostalgia, with undertones of corn syrup and food dye. It's not food, it's a mood, a feeling, a flashback in wrapper form. There are rumors that Twinkies can survive for 40 years. You don't question it. You test the theory by eating one that's been in your backpack for 2 weeks. It tastes the same, possibly better. And then there's Kool-Aid. A drink? Sure. A science experiment? Also, yes. You scoop a neon powder into a pitcher with reckless abandon. The instructions call for 1 cup of sugar, you add 4. The resulting beverage is so sweet it makes your teeth vibrate. It's not hydrating, it's electrifying. You drink it through a bendy straw that's probably leaching microplastics into your bloodstream. Worth it. Chips? Don't worry, there's a bag somewhere in the house that's mostly air and salt. You grab a handful of Doritos so orange your fingers could be used as road flares. You lick the dust off with zero shame. It's a chemical masterpiece, equal parts cheese, MSG, and joy. Ranch-flavored? Yes. Pizza-flavored? Even better. They don't taste like actual food, but they taste like winning. Your friend pulls out a snack pack pudding cup. Chocolate, obviously. He peels the foiled top like he's opening a treasure chest. No one uses a spoon. That's for the weak. You finger scoop it like a raccoon with nothing to lose. It's gritty, cold, and vaguely metallic. You love it. Don't even get started on Pop-Tarts. Are they breakfast? Dessert? Wall insulation? No one knows. You eat them frozen, toasted, or raw straight out of the sleeve like a caffeine-deprived squirrel. The frosting cracks like sugary armor, and the filling is lava hot. You burn your tongue every time and never learn. Occasionally, someone's mom tries to introduce something healthy. Celery sticks with peanut butter, apple slices, raisins that show up in a tiny box you immediately lose. You ignore these offerings unless you're desperate or trying to bargain for more Oreos. The food pyramid may exist in theory, but in practice it's more of a snack pile. The best snacks are traded like currency. You offer a Choco Taco for 2 packs of Gushers. A fruit roll-up is basically legal tender. The Holy Grail? A Lunchables pack with the tiny pizza. You'd trade your sibling's bike for one. You finish your snack with sticky fingers, a sugar high, and no nutritional value whatsoever. You're full, but also somehow hungrier. Snack time doesn't end. It just resets after your stomach stops buzzing. Because in the 1970s, snack time wasn't a break, it was a lifestyle. A brightly packaged, hyper-processed, neon-tinted journey through everything the FDA had stopped trying to regulate. And you? You were the pioneer. Sugar-fueled, stain-fingered, indestructible. If you want money, you earn it. Mowing lawns, walking dogs, or enduring the neighbors' endless stories about the war. Minimum wage is a rumor. You charge 50 cents, lose a finger, and call it a learning experience. You're not just a kid anymore. You're an entrepreneur, a capitalist in short shorts and tube socks, armed with nothing but a push mower and dreams of sugar-laced beverages. Nobody's handing you an allowance unless you do something dramatic, like paint the garage, or possibly rescue a cat from the neighbor's chimney. Even then, it's maybe $1. Maybe. So you create your own opportunities. The lawn mowing hustle is the most lucrative if you survive. The mower is a hand-me-down death trap that weighs as much as a small car and starts only if you whisper kind words to it while yanking the cord like you're trying to start a lawnmower on the moon. It chokes, sputters, and eventually roars to life, belching out enough smoke to signal a forest fire. You push it up and down the yard in crooked lines, wheezing from the pollen, sweat pouring into your eyes, the scent of cut grass, and potential tetanus filling your nose. Your client is always watching, an elderly man with a chair on his porch and a running commentary on your technique. You missed a spot. Back in my day, we used shears. You smile politely and keep pushing. You're not here for compliments. You're here for Slurpee money. Another day, it's dog walking. A generous term for being dragged full speed by an untrained golden retriever named Duke, who believes every squirrel is a personal insult. You wrap the leash around your wrist and hang on for dear life as he charges through flower beds and across busy intersections. The pay? $2 and a sunburn. Then there's babysitting. You're not old enough to drive. But somehow you're trusted to keep a toddler alive. You arrive at the job with a peanut butter sandwich and a comic book. The kid immediately eats a crayon and disappears into the curtains. 3 hours later, you're emotionally broken. The kid is covered in marker, and the parents tip you with a quarter and half a popsicle. You vow never to reproduce. Sometimes you do odd jobs for your own parents, which is worse. They give you family rates, which means free. You wash the car in 95-degree heat, only for your dad to say, "You missed a spot," and casually throw a sponge at your head. You rake leaves. You clean gutters. You carry bricks for a fun backyard project that never gets finished. You do it because you're promised a ride to the mall. That ride never materializes. Your friends are also hustling. Some sell lemonade. Others attempt a garage sale with 3 toys and a sad stack of back issues of Mad Magazine. One genius tries to sell fireworks in July and is shut down by his mum within the hour. Another kid claims he can get you firecrackers from Mexico if you give him $3 and a pack of gum. You never see him again. Still, you persist. You tally your change, count your quarters, and finally have enough to bike to 7-Eleven, buy a Slurpee, a candy bar, and maybe even a pack of Garbage Pail Kids. It's not just a snack run. It's a reward. A badge of honor earned through sweat, awkward conversations, and minor ligament damage. Because in the 1970s, summer jobs weren't about resumes or career building. They were about survival, about finding any excuse to get out of the house, into the world, and come back with pockets jangling just enough to feel like a king. And if you still had your fingers and a working knee by August, you were living the dream. Neighborhood animals roam free, including a dog named Duke, and a cat that may be immortal. There's also the one kid who eats ants for money. He's either a future astronaut or the reason for most parent-teacher conferences. Duke is, technically, someone's pet, but he operates more like a freelance security system with no loyalty. He spends his days chasing bicycles, eating unguarded sandwiches, and barking at sprinklers as if they owe him money. He's a big, slobbering blur of fur and chaos, and you have a scar on your ankle that proves it. He's been hit by 3 cars, bitten a mailman, and once brought home a possum that no one was entirely sure was dead. Duke is a legend. Then there's the cat. No one remembers when she arrived or who she belongs to. She's just there. Sometimes on your porch, sometimes on your roof, occasionally inside your house, even though no one let her in. She moves like a ghost and stares at you like she knows what you did. Her fur is matted, her eyes are wise, and you're pretty sure she has voting rights. Some say she's been around since the moon landing. Others claim she was born of static electricity and resentment. You don't pet her. You acknowledge her. Squirrels dominate, the treetops with the cocky attitude of street racers. They fight, scream, and occasionally fall out of trees mid-battle only to land, shake it off, and return to combat. One squirrel has a limp and half a tail. He's the boss now. You respect him. He's seen things. In the underbrush and alleyways, raccoons wage their own turf wars. One of them stole your sandwich last summer and looked you in the eyes while doing it. You think about him often. You named him Carl. Carl doesn't care. But even more unpredictable than the animals is that kid. Every neighborhood has one. Yours wears the same shirt every day and has a mysterious scab he never explains. He's always outside, barefoot, slightly sticky, and armed with either a stick or a pocket full of worms. He once licked a battery for a dare and said it tasted like lightning. You watched him eat a bug for 50 cents. Then try to sell the bug back to the kid who paid him. He doesn't have a bedtime. He doesn't have shoes. He has ideas. One day, he claims he built a jetpack from old vacuum parts and duct tape. He demonstrates by strapping it to his back, jumping off the swing set, and immediately breaking someone's fence. He laughs, covered in grass and glory. You cheer. This is science at work. He knows which garage fridges have the best popsicles and which elderly neighbors give out full-size candy bars. He once stole a cone from an ice cream truck. Not out of malice, but as part of an elaborate game called reverse tag. The rules are unclear. The injuries are many. Your parents call him a bad influence, but you know better. He's the spirit of summer in human form, feral, unpredictable, and endlessly entertaining. He teaches you how to climb fences, start fires with a magnifying glass, and the importance of never admitting who dared whom. Together, you and the neighborhood crew roam like a pack of weird, snack-fueled wolves. Duke leads from the front, barking at butterflies. The cat watches silently from a windowsill. That one kid dares you to jump off the garage roof using an umbrella. You don't. He does. By the end of the day, your arms are scratched, your knees are muddy, and your shirt smells like wet dog and peanut butter. You wouldn't trade it for anything. Because in the 1970s, suburban wildlife wasn't just animals. It was a whole ecosystem of chaos, curiosity, and the occasional tetanus shot. And in the middle of it all was you, just trying to stay on your bike, dodge Duke, and figure out how the ant-eating kid wasn't in jail yet. The local pool is a chemical soup where you and 20 other kids play shark, invent pool games with zero safety guidelines, and develop a lifelong tolerance for the taste of chlorine. Someone always belly flops. Someone always barfs. From the moment you walk through the rusted chain-link gate, the smell hits you. Pure chlorine, sunscreen, and the faint musk of damp hot dogs. The sun reflects off the water like it's trying to blind you. The concrete is lava hot, guaranteed to burn the soles of your feet, unless you hop from towel to towel like a sunburned ninja. You throw your towel on a questionable patch of grass, already half soaked from someone else's cannonball, and sprint toward the deep end without stretching, warming up, or thinking through the physics. You jump, the water slaps your face like a wet paperback novel, and suddenly you're immersed in a body temperature stew of kids, pool noodles, and at least 3 Band-Aids drifting eerily toward the filter. Every single game is invented on the spot. Shark involves one person closing their eyes and thrashing wildly in the deep end, while everyone else screams and tries not to get kicked in the ribs. Categories is just screaming names of cereal while jumping off the diving board. Hold your breath. Contests last until someone passes out or a lifeguard finally notices. Speaking of lifeguards, there's only one, and she's 16, wearing sunglasses, too big for her face, and a bored expression that says she's already mentally clocked out. Her job is to blow her whistle when kids do flips off the diving board or when someone brings a popsicle into the water. Anything short of an actual drowning gets a slow motion. Hey, cut it out. You inhale water constantly. Every splash, every dunk, every poorly timed cannonball sends a gulp of chlorine straight to your lungs. You cough, you choke, you recover instantly and go right back in because you are indestructible. The taste of chlorine becomes normal, expected, welcome even. It's like your body just accepts that this is what summer tastes like now. There's always one kid who shows up with a snorkel and mask and insists on pretending they're Jacques Cousteau. He spends the entire time underwater, popping up to give reports no one asked for. Another kid has water wings, even though he's clearly 10, and a third brings actual pool toys that promptly sink or explode upon contact with water. Snack time is a lawless moment. You emerge from the pool dripping wet, grab a soggy peanut butter sandwich with hands that haven't been cleaned since Nixon resigned, and eat it while standing on one foot to avoid the ants. You chase it with a red otter pop that dyes your tongue for days and leaks neon sugar into your bloodstream. You're full of chemicals, sugar, and pride. And then there's the puke. At some point, someone always swallows too much water or eats too many nachos, and suddenly the whistle blows 3 times. Everyone clears out. You sit on the side, shivering, as the lifeguard dumps an industrial-sized bottle of mystery powder on the offending spot. It foams. It fizzles. You watch in awe like it's a science experiment, then immediately ask, "Can we go back in now?" Eventually, your fingers prune into raisins, your goggles fill with water, and your towel has turned into a damp, unusable rag. You pack up, sunburned, sticky, exhausted, and slightly chemically altered. Because in the 1970s, the pool wasn't just recreation, it was chaos in liquid form. A chlorinated baptism into summer madness. You entered as a child and left as something far weirder. Part human, part frog, 100% waterlogged. And somehow, you loved every second of it. Lunch is a creative exercise. You slap together a sandwich of bologna, cheese, and mayonnaise. No vegetables allowed. Fruit is a suggestion, not a requirement. Someone tries to trade a ding-dong for a bag of chips and gets swindled. Your lunch lives in a metal box featuring a cartoon character that may or may not be holding up legally. Inside, chaos. A thermos clinks around, filled with either warm milk or something that once resembled soup. The sandwich is wrapped in wax paper that's half stuck to the cheese, and everything smells vaguely like feet and fruit roll-ups. The bread is Wonder Bread, white, squishy, and scientifically engineered to dissolve on contact with saliva. It's less a slice of bread and more a suggestion of grain-based structure. The bologna inside has that signature pink glow, like it was forged in a lab dedicated to meat-shaped puzzles. Sometimes there's a suspicious dark ring around the edges, but you ignore it. The cheese is American, which is to say, it's plastic that melts slightly in sunlight and tastes like optimism. No one uses lettuce. That's just wet crunch that ruins the texture. Tomatoes are a gamble. Pickles are reserved for special occasions or accidents. The Holy Trinity is bologna, cheese, and mayo, stacked, smushed, and consumed with gusto. Bonus points if the mayo has started to warm up just a little, releasing a subtle tang that makes your stomach question everything. Sides are where things get wild. A half-crushed bag of chips, a cookie you dropped in the driveway but brushed off on your shorts, and an apple with a bruise so large it qualifies for disability parking. The apple gets ignored, traded, or used as a weapon. It's ceremonial, not nutritional. And then there are the trades. Oh, the trades. The lunch table becomes a black market economy, where items are bartered with ruthless efficiency. A Hostess cupcake can net you 2 pudding packs and a handshake. A rare Pop-Tart, practically currency. But if you try to trade an off-brand snack, say a snack round instead of a ding-dong, you will be mocked relentlessly. It's not about the food. It's about status. Someone always brings Lunchables, which is cheating, pre-cut meats and crackers with dessert included. That's wealth. That's Wall Street-level power in a 6th grader's hand. The kid with the Lunchables becomes a temporary monarch, ruling the lunchroom with Ritz and cheddar. Meanwhile, one poor soul is stuck with a tuna sandwich. The smell clears a 3-table radius, and they eat it with the grim determination of a soldier completing a mission. They don't chew. They endure. The thermos is a wild card. You unscrew the lid with hope. Will it be soup, spaghetti, something experimental your mum saw in a magazine? Once it's chicken noodle, once it's chocolate milk that's somehow both hot and separated. You sip cautiously. You regret it immediately. You eat quickly, because time is short and there's still a tetherball score to settle. You wad up your napkin, toss your apple at someone's backpack, and shotgun the last of your Kool-Aid like a rock star with a sugar addiction. The lunchbox gets slammed shut, tossed into a backpack, and forgotten until the next day, when you discover a 3-day-old sandwich that has achieved sentience and now demands to be called Greg. But you survived lunch. You navigated the sandwich mines, the snack trades, and the thermos lottery without crying or barfing. That's a win. Because in the 1970s, lunch wasn't just a meal, it was a battle. A crunchy, sticky, neon-hued rite of passage. It taught you economics, resilience, and the incredible strength of a Twinkie left in direct sunlight. And, honestly, you've never eaten better. Or dumber. You sprawl in front of a Zenith television, watch Scooby-Doo solve crimes with 0 adult supervision, and absorb commercials for toys that probably violate at least 3 federal safety laws. The moral of every show: don't trust old caretakers in masks. This is the holy grail of downtime. The post-lunch, pre-dinner oasis where your legs go numb on shag carpet. Your brain melts into a kaleidoscope of colors and jingles, and the television becomes your most trustworthy babysitter. It's boxy, it's warm, it might electrocute you if you touch the back. But it works, and that's all that matters. The picture isn't great. You fiddle with the rabbit ears, stacking tinfoil, and hope to pull in Channel 5. The image sharpens just enough to distinguish Velma from Daphne. and you settle in for an afternoon of comfort and chaos. Cartoons are an experience. Plot lines are vague. Animation is limited. And yet, you're riveted. Scooby-Doo unravels criminal conspiracies with the help of a talking dog, an ascot, and a van that may or may not be powered by something illegal. You don't ask questions, you just cheer when they unmask the villain, who is always some old man trying to steal a carnival for reasons never fully explained. The moral lessons are dubious. Don't split up unless you're hot. Run from your problems and hide in barrels. The ghost is never a ghost, it's always a real estate scam. These are the teachings that shape your worldview. Commercial breaks are a separate thrill. Every 7 minutes, you're hit with a high-octane barrage of jingles, flashing lights, and voices shouting things like, "New!" from Mattel. It's not advertising, it's hypnosis. You suddenly need Rock'em Sock'em robots. You don't just want to stretch Armstrong. You need it more than air. One toy lets you make edible bugs. Another shoots sparks across your living room. There are commercials for toys made entirely of sharp plastic, small choking hazards, and questionable ethics. One of them probably contains lead. Another may be legally classified as a weapon in 3 states. You don't care. You want all of it. You also absorb ads for sugary cereals masquerading as breakfast. They promise marshmallows, treasure maps, and the vague threat of a wizard duel. You are sold. You make a mental note to beg your mom next grocery trip with a level of theatrical desperation usually reserved for hostage negotiations. Every few ads, there's a PSA that tries to undo all the damage. Don't talk to strangers. Brush your teeth. Winners don't do drugs. You nod solemnly while eating pixie sticks off the floor. Then come the lesser-known cartoons, bootleg space adventures, weird animal sidekicks, and knock-off superheroes with one animation cycle and a catchphrase that never lands. One show features a crime-solving kangaroo, another involves time travel and yogurt. None of it makes sense. All of it is magical. Eventually, your sibling barges in, demands a turn, and changes the channel to something awful, probably a game show. You wrestle for control of the TV dial, which clicks like a safe being cracked. Someone gets elbowed, someone gets bit, the victor changes it back to He-Man, justice is restored. Your parents glance in briefly to make sure you're not on fire. Satisfied, they go back to whatever adult thing they were doing, probably fixing a car with a hammer or arguing about gas prices. You watch until the sun starts setting and your stomach rumbles. The light changes. The cartoons end. The evening news begins, signaling that your freedom is over. But for one glorious afternoon, you lived in a world of mystery, color, danger, and questionable manufacturing standards. Because in the 1970s, television wasn't just entertainment, it was an education. A wild, weird, wonderful training montage in how to solve crimes. Want things you don't need, and never trust a man in a rubber mask. Your friend's older brother is making a volcano in the garage. The recipe includes vinegar, baking soda, and a mysterious can of something flammable. The resulting explosion teaches everyone about cause, effect, and the value of eyebrows. This is not a school-approved science project. This is backyard chemistry, fueled by boredom, loose supervision, and a level of enthusiasm typically reserved for NASA launches. There are no goggles, no safety procedures. Just a bunch of kids huddled around a workbench covered in scorch marks, elbow macaroni, and half a can of WD-40. It starts innocently enough. Someone saw an episode of Mr. Wizard and thought, we could totally do that, but, bigger. They raid the kitchen, baking soda, vinegar, maybe some food coloring for effect. So far, so good. But then someone says, Let's add lighter fluid, and suddenly the experiment crosses from harmless fun into a hazmat incident waiting to happen. The volcano itself is made of papier-mâché and dreams. It's painted red, sitting on a pizza box for stability, and already leaning suspiciously to the left. Around it, there are funnels, Tupperware bowls, and a mysterious sock no one claims. You're standing 3 feet back, holding a garden hose, because you were voted most cautious after last week's bottle rocket accident. The older brother, who is practically a local deity due to his possession of both armpit hair and a pocket knife, lights the fuse, or maybe just a rolled-up napkin soaked in something flammable. He announces, "This is going to be awesome," which is scientifically proven to precede disaster 90–80% of the time. The eruption begins as expected, a frothy, foamy mess of vinegar and baking soda. But then the chemical cocktail hits the accelerant, and things go sideways. A pop, then a boom, and the volcano launches its top like a cork from a champagne bottle. A nearby Barbie loses her head. A lawn chair flips. Everyone dives, for cover behind a trash can lid and a bag of dog food. Silence. Then giggles. Then coughing. A cloud of pinkish smoke billows from the garage like a signal to the neighborhood that science has, once again, gotten out of hand. Nobody's hurt. Mostly. One kid has singed arm hair. Another is wet from spraying the hose in the wrong direction. Your ears are ringing. Your heart is pounding. And your mind is already crafting how to describe the event to your parents in a way that sounds more educational than criminal. What did you learn? Your dad will ask later, inspecting the still smoking crater in the driveway. You'll shrug. Science is cool? He'll nod. Just don't blow up the mower next time. These garage experiments aren't rare. 1 week, it's an attempt to make slime that turns into concrete. Another, someone mixes every cleaning product under the sink to see what happens, which results in a smell so bad even the dog leaves the house voluntarily. There are stink bombs, ant farms turned prison escape dramas, and one misguided attempt at a potato-powered radio that just electrocuted Kyle. But you learned things. Not things from textbooks, but important things, like how not to light fireworks indoors, or that hairspray plus a lighter equals a flamethrower. You learned the basic laws of physics, flammability, and peer pressure. You discovered that mixing unknown substances often results in both awe and grounding. You also learned that adults will tolerate almost anything as long as no one ends up at the ER and the lawn doesn't catch fire. Because in the 1970s, science wasn't confined to classrooms or kits with warning labels. It was hands-on, wild, occasionally explosive, and always unforgettable. You didn't just study experiments, you became the experiment. And if your eyebrows grew back a little uneven, that was just the cost of progress. You've been warned about strangers, but the advice is vague and mostly involves not getting into windowless vans. In reality, you talk to everyone. The mailman, the neighbor who dresses like a pirate, and the 7-Eleven cashier who knows your Slurpee order by heart. The 70s approach to stranger danger was kind of like the food pyramid. Well-intentioned, wildly misunderstood, and loosely enforced. You got the talk, maybe once, during a car ride, when your mum absent-mindedly said, "Don't get in any vans." No context, no follow-up. Just stay away from candy and vans. You nodded solemnly and immediately forgot. And yet, you talked to everyone. Everyone talked to you. The neighborhood was an open-air community forum, where privacy didn't exist and eccentricity was just part of the vibe. You knew every adult on the block by their first name, even if they didn't know yours. You waved at them, You helped them carry groceries. You may have once mowed a stranger's lawn because you thought it was your friend's house. No one stopped you. The mailman was practically family. He wore shorts year-round, smelled vaguely of aftershave and envelopes, and called every kid sport. He knew who had moved, who had gone on vacation, and which houses were receiving suspiciously heavy packages marked fragile. You offered him a juice box once. He politely declined. Then there was Pirate Dave. Not a real pirate, but close. He wore a tricorn hat, had a parrot, well, a cockatiel, and occasionally spoke in sea shanties. He gave out butterscotch candies and told stories about treasure buried somewhere near the old water tower. Was he odd? Yes. Was he dangerous? Probably not. Was he left off the PTA invite list? Definitely. You'd see him mowing his lawn in full pirate gear, waving with a hook he wore for flair, and not one adult thought to intervene. He was just part of the neighborhood landscape, like the fire hydrant or that one basketball hoop with no net. Every town had one guy like this, a walking urban legend with good intentions and weird hobbies. Then there was the 7-Eleven cashier. You never knew his name, but he knew everything about you. Your Slurpee preference, Cherry Coke swirl, your weekly comic book choices, your friend group hierarchy. He nodded sagely when you walked in, like a sage wizard in a realm of corn nuts and beef jerky. He rang you up without judgment, even when you bought nothing but Funyuns and 6 feet of bubble tape. He was your mentor, your counselor, your sugar dealer. And yet, there were sketchy types. Always that one guy in the van with the curtains and the bumper stickers. You avoided eye contact, crossed the street, and whispered to your friends, "That's one of the vans they warned us about." None of you had any follow-up plan, but pointing it out felt proactive. Still, the warnings were inconsistent. Your parents told you not to talk to strangers, but then encouraged you to be polite to Mr. Jensen when he cornered you at the block party and talked about his knee surgery for 25 minutes. It was all vibes-based parenting. Stranger danger wasn't a policy. It was a gut feeling and a vague hope you'd be fine. You walked alone to the store. You knocked on random doors for charity drives. You roamed through parks, chatted with old ladies walking Pomeranians, and once accepted a glass of lemonade from someone you think was a family friend, or maybe a cousin, or possibly just a neighbor with a very trusting face. And somehow, it all worked out. Maybe because the world was a little smaller, or maybe because you traveled in packs like snack-fueled meerkats with bikes. You didn't have phones, but you had instincts. And you knew how to run, because in the 1970s, the line between stranger and honorary uncle was blurry. But your street smarts were sharp. You knew who to trust, who to avoid, and how to pretend you didn't hear the weird guy at the park asking if you liked magic tricks. And that, strangely enough, was enough. By mid-afternoon, the house is hotter than the blank surface of Mercury. Air conditioning is for the rich, so you survive with popsicles, box fans, and elaborate arguments about who gets the coolest spot on the floor. Someone always cheats. There's a stillness in the air that feels ominous. The sun has baked the asphalt into a shimmering griddle. The lawn is crunchy. The air is heavy with the scent of melted plastic and defeat. You've stopped sweating not because you're cool, but because your body has entered survival mode. The only rule now? Don't move unless absolutely necessary. The house doesn't have central air. It has a fan, singular. And not one of those tower fans with remote control and 12 speed settings. No. This is a rattling Sears box fan that hums like a dying refrigerator and can only blow air in one direction, not at you. You take turns laying in front of it like overheated cats, faces pressed into the carpet, trying to breathe through the backwash of slightly less hot air. Everyone has a tactic. Your sibling wets a washcloth and drapes it dramatically over their forehead like a Victorian ghost. Your cousin sticks their shirt in the freezer and wears it for 30 seconds of bliss before it instantly returns to room temperature and disappointment. You try placing your feet in the dog's water bowl. The dog objects. You do it anyway. Popsicles are currency now. The red ones are sacred. The blue ones are acceptable. The orange ones are tolerated. The green ones are considered punishment. You rip open the plastic sleeve with your teeth and suck down artificial fruit concentrate like it's a medical necessity. Your lips turn the color of road signs. Your tongue tingles. You are briefly, gloriously, alive. The furniture is the enemy. The couch is made of vinyl, and sitting on it is like getting wrapped in hot duct tape. You peel yourself off it with a sound so awful it becomes family folklore. Chairs are worse. They retain heat and judgment. The only relief is the linoleum kitchen floor. It's cool, smooth, and marginally clean. So naturally, everyone ends up there. You stretch out like a starfish, claiming your territory. Your sibling does the same, toes touching your arm like it's a declaration of war. A silent battle begins. Who can stay motionless the longest without losing floor space? Someone cheats, someone gets kicked, someone fetches an ice cube to place dramatically on their neck, like they've read about it in a survival manual. Meanwhile, the TV is on, but the volume is low to avoid overheating the living room, according to your uncle, who is lying in his recliner with a paper fan and a look of pure betrayal toward the Sunday. The room smells faintly of melted crayon, damp socks, and generational trauma. No one has the energy to change the channel, so you're watching something none of you care about, and yet no one will leave the room. It's the coolest one in the house by 2 degrees, and that's worth the suffering. At some point, someone suggests going outside to feel the hose water or stand under a tree. This is quickly vetoed because going outside would involve movement. No one has moved in hours, except to rotate like overcooked rotisserie chickens. Finally, someone opens the freezer just to stand there. The cool air blasts out, sacred and fleeting. You take turns standing in front of it like you're being baptized in Freon. It helps for 9 seconds. Then the freezer starts to beep, and your grandma yells something about electricity bills from the next room. And so you settle back into your puddle of self, waiting for the sun to go down, the air to shift, or a passing thunderstorm to save you all. Because in the 1970s, you didn't beat the heat, you endured it. With popsicles, passive aggression, and the shared dream that one day, someone in the house would install a ceiling fan. But until then, you had the kitchen floor, a melting popsicle, and the will to survive. Your favorite toys include projectiles, sharp edges, and enough small parts to choke a horse. You play jarts until someone nearly loses an eye. The winner is the one with the most intact limbs at sundown. In the 1970s, toys weren't just entertainment. They were weapons of minor destruction. Sold in cheerful packaging, there were no safety warnings, no choking hazard labels, and definitely no age-appropriate guidelines. If you had opposable thumbs and could fog a mirror, congratulations, you were old enough to wield something with metal tips and questionable physics. Let's start with jarts. Imagine horseshoes, but heavier, pointier, and launched by children with no understanding of trajectory. They were marketed as lawn darts, but were really medieval spears disguised as backyard fun. You'd set up plastic rings in the yard and hurl the darts into the air, hoping to land them near the target, or at least not in someone's femur. There was always that one kid who threw them straight up, just to see what would happen. What happened was screaming, usually. Then there were BB guns. Not toys, technically, but definitely treated like them. You'd pump the air chamber until your arms went numb, then fire at soda cans, trees, and occasionally your cousin's bike tire. Protective eyewear was for cowards. The real danger wasn't getting shot. It was being caught with the gun. You weren't supposed to have it outside city limits, but what the adults didn't know couldn't cause a neighborhood-wide manhunt. Probably. Cap guns were another staple. Loud, smoky, and just realistic enough to terrify any adult with eyes. You'd load paper rolls into the chamber and pull the trigger, releasing a pop and a puff of mystery smoke. Your fingers would be blackened with soot, your ears ringing, and your sense of coolness unmatched. Sometimes you'd light the caps with matches just for fun. Science. Don't forget the clacker balls. 2 acrylic spheres tied to a string, designed to smash into each other with enough force to fracture bone. The goal was rhythm, but most kids just used them as makeshift flails. If you got really good, you could generate enough speed to chip a tooth. You were a legend if you made it through the summer without a wrist injury. Other toys came with wheels, but no brakes. Like the big wheel, a tricycle with the stopping power of a soap bar. You'd pedal downhill, steering with desperation, and hoping that dragging your sneaker along the sidewalk would slow your descent before you hit the neighbor's mailbox. Spoiler alert, it wouldn't. Bicycles, of course, came with their own risks. But attaching things to them? That's where creativity shined. You'd strap firecrackers to the spokes, clothespin playing cards for sound effects, and tie whatever random object you found in the garage to the handlebars. You were a rolling hazard, and proud of it. Let's not overlook the infamous chemistry sets. They promised fun experiments, but what they delivered was a recipe for making your own smoke bombs, mild explosives, and the occasional garage fire. The instructions were vague. The ingredients were probably illegal now, but if you didn't accidentally stain the driveway with something that couldn't be identified by modern science, were you even doing it right? Every toy had an element of danger. That was the whole point. You didn't want safe, you wanted thrilling. Your injuries were badges of honor. Scrapes, bruises, and stories that began with, "So, I was playing with this metal thing that heats up when you plug it in by sundown. The yard was littered with dented lawn darts, broken BB pellets, and someone's shoe. You counted heads, checked for bleeding, and called it a successful day. Only 2 Band-Aids used? That's a personal best. Because in the 1970s, toys didn't come with warnings. They came with consequences. And somehow, you survived with all 10 fingers, a few scars, and a healthy respect for anything labeled banned in 6 countries. Dinner is a casserole made of leftovers and hope. Baked until done is a matter of opinion. You eat what's served or go hungry. There's always a mysterious can of cream of something involved. Dessert is jello with things floating in it. You sit at the dinner table, where the lighting is just bright enough to fully illuminate your regrets. The tablecloth is plastic, patterned with faded fruit, and your seat has been reinforced with duct tape and parental disappointment. The smell wafting from the kitchen is indistinct. Savory, sour, slightly metallic? You brace yourself. The casserole dish arrives, steaming like a swamp creature, surfacing for air. It's a rectangle of possibilities. No one quite knows what's inside. It's different every time, but the rules are the same. You take a scoop. You do not ask questions. You chew. The ingredients are familiar only in the vaguest sense. There's definitely some shredded cheese, maybe tuna, possibly hamburger. There's something crunchy on top. Potato chips? Cornflakes? You aren't sure. The glue holding it all together is that omnipresent, unlabeled force of nature. Cream of something soup. Mushroom? Chicken? Celery? No one knows. No one dares to know. It comes from a can and smells faintly like wallpaper paste and salt. Vegetables are present, but barely. Green beans that have lost all structural integrity. Peas that are more grey than green. Carrots that taste suspiciously like the casserole itself, as if the whole thing has been marinating in the same identity crisis for 3 hours. You eat because the alternative is famine. In this house, picky eater is a personal insult. You clean your plate, or you become the subject of an extended lecture about starving children in other countries and how they'd be grateful for this exact pile of ambiguity. Every so often, your mum tries to shake things up. She finds a recipe in a magazine with suspicious optimism and words like zesty or budget-friendly. The resulting dish involves ketchup in a way that defies God and nature. She watches your face closely with the intensity of a game show host waiting to see if you'll guess the correct answer. You smile, you lie, you survive. Drinks are simple. Either milk, lukewarm and somehow gritty, or tap water with a slight aftertaste of metal and hose. Soda is a rare treat, reserved for guests or bribery. If you want flavor, you better hope the Jell-O pulls through. Ah, yes, the Jell-O. Dessert is a jiggling monument to the culinary confusion of the era. It's red, or green, possibly orange. Inside float things that have no business being suspended in gelatin. Canned pineapple, mini marshmallows, shredded coconut, walnuts. Sometimes all of them at once, like a fruit salad that lost a bet. It wobbles menacingly as it's spooned onto your plate. You eat it because sugar is sugar, and your standards have been thoroughly dismantled. Sometimes there's cake. It's from a box and frosted with something that tastes like vanilla and despair. Other times, dessert is just not a thing. You get a mint. Or a comment about how fruit is dessert if you think about it. Conversations during dinner are a mix of sibling accusations, passive-aggressive parental updates, and someone getting grounded mid-meal. The TV is off. The tension is high. You eat fast. Not because you're hungry, but because you want to finish before the food starts judging you. As you scrape the last bits of casserole from your plate, your dad burps with authority and declares the meal a success. Your mum sighs. You exhale through your nose like someone who's just dodged a bullet made of lima beans. Because in the 1970s, dinner wasn't gourmet. It was survival. A bubbling beige test of character served in Pyrex, and followed by a semi-solid dessert. You didn't eat for taste, you ate for endurance, and somehow you kind of miss it. Bath time is an ordeal. The soap stings, the shampoo burns, and the water never quite gets warm. You wash the day's crimes off your skin and emerge slightly cleaner, definitely grumpier, and smelling faintly of Lifebuoy. You are summoned to the bathroom like a prisoner to trial. There's no negotiation, no escape. You are sticky, sunburned, slightly crusty, and beginning to emit a scent that could legally be classified as barnyard. The bath is your penance. The tub is a shade of beige that no longer exists in nature or modern manufacturing. It's stained with the echoes of previous bathers, the ghosts of Kool-Aid spills, and something unidentifiable near the drain. The water takes 47 minutes to fill because your house has 2 speeds. Glacial trickle or fire hydrant. You aim for lukewarm and land on tepid regret. You strip down, step in, and immediately regret your life choices. The bottom is slippery. The faucet is hot enough to forge metal. The soap slips from your hand like a greased eel and lodges itself in the back corner of the tub where only the bravest souls dare reach. The soap is always Lifebuoy. Red, angry, harsh. It smells like antiseptic punishment and leaves your skin feeling like it's been lightly sandblasted. You lather up until your eyes sting and your mouth tastes like industrial sanitizer. You wonder if this is what astronauts use to disinfect their souls. Then comes shampoo. It's a neon-colored goo squeezed from a bottle that may or may not have cartoon animals on it. Regardless of branding, it burns. It gets in your eyes, your nose, possibly your ears, and no matter how much you rinse, the pain lingers like a war crime. You flail, you blink furiously, you scream, "It's in my eyes," to which your parent replies, "Then close your eyes next time." Helpful, comforting, a level of sympathy usually reserved for boot camp. You rinse your head by leaning back like you're in a shampoo commercial, except it's nothing like that at all. The water runs down your face, into your ears, and soaks the towel you were supposed to keep dry. You emerge gasping like a swamp creature, blindly reaching for anything that isn't soap or shame. You attempt to wash behind your ears. You fail. You attempt to clean your feet. You almost drown. You're told to scrub harder, as if the problem isn't that you've been rolling in chlorine, dirt, and the memory of 1,000 popsicles. Once your skin has reached peak prune, you're allowed to escape. But not before someone peeks in to say, "Did you wash your hair?" And you lie with the speed of a seasoned politician. "Yes," you say. As shampoo suds drip down your neck, you wrap yourself in a towel that's somehow both damp and scratchy. You dry off by spinning in circles and pretending it counts. You leave behind a puddle the size of a koi pond and wet footprints leading to the fridge. Your hair is still wet when you go to bed. Your pillow absorbs the last of the moisture and will smell faintly of Lifebuoy for the prior next 72 hours. Your skin tingles, your eyes still burn a little, and your soul feels slightly cleaner, but not by much, because in the 1970s, bath time wasn't luxury. It was routine, functional, brutal, a sudsy battlefield where you came out the other side cleaner, tougher, and slightly more paranoid about shampoo labels. And yet, despite the stinging eyes and ghost-scented towels, you knew it was the price of adventure, a daily reset button, a necessary rinse after surviving another wild, sun-drenched, dirt-caked, Kool-Aid-stained day of glorious chaos. You crawl into bed in pajamas made from a fabric the government no longer allows. Your siblings tell ghost stories. Your parents warn you about the boogeyman. And you fall asleep to the sound of cicadas and the distant jingle of the ice cream truck, mocking you with one last song. The pajamas are a special kind of itchy, some kind of space-age polyester that can start a static fire if you shuffle across the carpet too fast. They came in a 2-pack from the department store, and the pattern is either cartoon characters or something vaguely threatening like geometric tigers. They don't breathe, they don't stretch, but they shine. You look like a disco ball, ready for unconsciousness. Your bed is a battlefield of questionable support. The springs groan with every movement. The sheets are too short for the mattress, and the pillow feels like it was stuffed with old newspaper and broken dreams. Still, it's yours. It smells like shampoo, grass, and the faint remnants of whatever you wiped on it last Tuesday. You snuggle in, but sleep won't come yet. First, there's the sacred rite of ghost stories. Your older sibling starts in a hushed voice. "Did you hear about the man with the hook for a hand?" And just like that, you're wide awake, clutching your blanket like a Kevlar vest. The story escalates. There's always a lost camper, a haunted radio, or a babysitter who never saw it coming. The flashlight under the chin effect adds drama, even though the light flickers like it's afraid of the story too. Someone screams just to scare the group. Someone else farts. The atmosphere shifts from terror to comedy in seconds. Then your parents step in, not to offer comfort, but to up the ante. Better get to sleep, your dad says from the hallway. Or the boogeyman might get you. He says it like a joke, but you're not sure. You ask for clarification. He doesn't give it. That's parenting in the 70s. Casual psychological warfare, wrapped in bedtime kisses. The windows open because the house is 400 degrees, and there's no AC. Outside, cicadas drone like a broken electric toothbrush. A dog barks. A neighbor yells something about someone letting the hose run. And then, like a cruel lullaby, the jingle of the ice cream truck echoes from the next street over. It plays Turkey in the Straw. But to you, it may as well be na-na-na-na-na-na. You missed it. It's 9 p.m. That driver knows exactly what they're doing. You turn over bitterly, dreaming of bomb pops and revenge. There's no nightlight, only the hallway glow from a cracked door. Shadows dance on the wall, courtesy of a tree branch that has clearly been trying to kill you for months. Every creak is footsteps. Every gust of wind is someone breathing. You clutch your blanket and mentally review all the rules of ghost survival. Don't say the monster's name, don't go to the basement, and definitely don't look under the bed. Eventually you drift off. Not peacefully, but in stages. Your brain cools down like an old engine. The polyester clings to your legs. You kick off the sheet, only to panic 10 seconds later and pull it back up to your chin for ghost defense. You dream of strange things, haunted vending machines, falling into ball pits, and the dog from earlier, but now it talks and wants your homework. It's nonsense, perfect nonsense. Because in the 1970s, bedtime wasn't calm. It was chaotic, slightly creepy, and clothed in fabrics now outlawed for flammability. But it worked. You survived the heat, the ghosts, and the jingles of Miss Dessert, and somehow you fell asleep anyway. Wrapped in static, fear, and polyester courage, you drift off with visions of flying cars, robot butlers, and a future where nobody ever huffs gasoline behind a convenience store again. But deep down, you know tomorrow will smell exactly the same, like grass, sweat, and the sweet, sweet promise of mischief. Because even as your eyes close and your brain begins its nightly rerun of today's adventures, bike crashes, jart injuries, and a questionable casserole, you're already imagining what might come next. The future, after all, is where things get even weirder. That's what they keep promising on Saturday morning cartoons and those educational shorts between commercials that suggest you'll one day live in a dome and order dinner from a button. Your dream self cruises through a world of silver jumpsuits and breakfast in pill form. Your kitchen is run by a talking blender named Rex. You get a hoverboard, not the real ones, not yet, but the kind you saw in comics and assumed would be standard issue by the year 20,000. And of course, your dream version of school happens entirely through a screen, which sounds amazing until you remember how much you hate math, even in digital form. The robot butler in your dream has your mum's voice and insists you clean your virtual room. You protest, it shuts down. Victory. But even in this Jetsons-style paradise, something feels familiar. The grass is still itchy. The neighbor's dog still chases you, only now he's got laser eyes. You're still drinking from a hose, now 3D printed and lemon-scented, sure, but the chaos remains. That's the real heart of it. No matter how futuristic the dream, the core ingredients are the same. Sunburns, sibling sabotage, Slurpees, mysterious neighborhood smells. Mischief in all its glorious, rule-bending forms. Because the future never really felt that far away in the 1970s. It was just later, After dinner, after chores, after this one last game of flashlight tag that ends when someone steps on a rake or gets tangled in a lawn chair. Tomorrow would be the same, only different, maybe with more Velcro. In your dream, you and your friends build a spaceship in the backyard using duct tape, couch cushions, and at least one appliance you weren't supposed to touch. You launch it from the garage roof. It hovers for exactly 1 second before collapsing in a triumphant heap of ambition and poor engineering. You all cheer anyway, because in the dreams of 1970s kids, failure wasn't defeat, it was prequel. Every crash was a lesson. Every scraped knee, a design flaw. And every wild-eyed plan, no matter how impractical, held the shimmer of something magical. You drift deeper into sleep, brain buzzing with plans for tomorrow. Maybe you'll invent a teleportation device. Maybe you'll finally catch that raccoon. Maybe you'll start a rock band using garbage cans and a garden hose. It doesn't matter. What matters is the knowing, deep in your pajama-clad bones, that something weird and wonderful is always waiting just past breakfast. So even though the future in your dreams has flying skateboards, edible homework, and soda that talks back, you know the real thrill is the same as it's always been, waking up with a wild idea, a pocket full of questionable snacks, and just enough parental neglect to pull it off. Because in the end, childhood wasn't about perfection, it was about momentum, motion, mess, a blur of sugar, sweat, and slightly dangerous optimism. And as you float through dreams of tomorrows filled with gadgets and glitter, you do so knowing one undeniable truth. The future will be strange, but it will always smell like grass, rubber tires, and whatever was in that Slurpee cup you left outside last night. The neighborhood is alive with the sound of two-stroke engines and the scent of freshly cut grass, or, more accurately, gas and bravado. You and your friends decide that nothing says suburban childhood quite like racing Dad's rusted lawnmower down the driveway. Safety gear? Not a chance. The only rule: if you crash, try not to take out Mrs. Dugan's tulips. The victor is the one who makes it to the end of the block without losing a shoe, a tooth, or a parent's trust. It all begins on a boring Tuesday, when the heat is unbearable, your energy is feral, and someone has the terrible, wonderful idea to borrow a riding lawnmower. Technically, it's not yours. Technically, it hasn't been started since the Nixon administration. But it still smells like gasoline and danger, which is how you know it's going to be fun. The machine is rusted, rattling, and makes a sound like it's trying to cough up a squirrel when you finally get it started. You and 3 friends crowd around it like it's a hot rod. Nobody knows how to properly operate it. Someone suggests, just sit on it and go, which is both the plan and the entire safety briefing. You mount it like a chariot of suburban doom, the sun reflecting off your scratched-up aviator sunglasses, possibly from a cereal box, and start rolling. Slowly. So slowly. It's less a race and more a funeral procession with ambition. But then someone yells, "Bet you won't go full throttle." And now it's a real competition. There's no track, no helmets, and absolutely no adult permission. The driveway becomes a drag strip. The sidewalks become pit lanes. And that crack in the pavement halfway down the block? That's the jump. You know it, you fear it, you aim for it anyway. Each racer takes turns. The lawnmower, now dubbed the Green Menace, becomes the centerpiece of the block. Someone adds streamers to the handlebars. Someone else tapes a baseball card to the spokes for sound effects that don't work but feel important. You create a bracket system on the back of a cereal box. You're professional now. Races are announced with the grace of a monster truck rally. In this corner, weighing 70 pounds and running purely on pixie sticks, Kyle. He revs the mower. It backfires. You all cheer like it just shot flames. Crashes are frequent. There are no brakes, only options. Ditch into a bush, crash into a recycling bin, or drag your foot like a flintstone. Kyle picks the bush. Taylor wipes out near the curb and earns a scrape that'll later be described as definitely fine by someone not qualified to assess injuries. Mrs. Dugan comes out once, wielding a hose and yelling something about tulips and juvenile delinquents. You all scatter like bugs under a porch light, hiding behind hedges and trash cans until she goes back inside. Then you emerge, undefeated and slightly wetter. You take turns. You fake injuries. You exaggerate speed records. The fastest time is still only slightly, faster than walking, but you lie about it anyway. One kid says he saw sparks. Another swears he did a wheelie. Nobody believes anyone, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the lawnmower is wheeled back to its sacred resting place, under the tarp, behind the garage, next to the pile of broken dreams and empty gas cans. You are sunburned, bruised, stained with grass and glory. Because in the 1970s, fun wasn't found on a screen. It lived in the weirdest corners of your neighborhood. Behind the shed, beneath the trampoline, or under the seat of a gas-guzzling, mildly terrifying lawn tractor. Safety was optional. Memory-making was mandatory. And somehow, you didn't just race lawnmowers. You raced toward freedom, friendship, and a future that smelled exactly like cut grass, burnt oil, and childhood victory. Every street has a legend, and yours is Big Mike, the teenager with a mullet and a questionable stash of fireworks. On any given evening, you gather in awe as Mike demonstrates the delicate art of lighting a bottle rocket with a cigarette. The show always ends with a near miss, a minor explosion, and a promise to never tell your parents. Big Mike claims he's teaching you physics. In reality, you're just grateful to still have your eyebrows. Big Mike is 15, which to you might as well be 30. He's got a rusty BMX bike, a jean jacket with cigarette burns, and a level of freedom that borders on myth. He once skipped school for a week, allegedly to hike the train tracks to Canada. Whether or not that's true is irrelevant. What matters is that you believe it could be. He's the guy your mom warns you about and your dad nods at in quiet respect. He smokes Marlboros, listens to Led Zeppelin, and smells like gasoline and adventure. Most importantly, Big Mike has fireworks, not the legal kind, not the sparklers and snakes. We're talking Roman candles 80s and something he calls the Widowmaker, which may or may not be a modified traffic flare. You and your friends follow him like disciples. At dusk, when the streetlights flicker on and the air smells like freshly cut grass and bad decisions, Big Mike sets up his show. The launch pad is an old coffee can stuffed with sand and regret. The safety zone is wherever you can dive behind a parked car in under 3 seconds. The ritual begins with a cigarette dangle. Mike doesn't use lighters, he uses style. He squints, leans in, and ignites fuses with the same casual cool you might use to microwave a hot pocket. Then he yells, "Clear!" which is your only warning to run. The fireworks go skyward, sideways, or occasionally into someone's hedge. Screams, cheers, and hysterical laughter follow. One time, a bottle rocket ricocheted off a mailbox and exploded under your neighbor's porch. Big Mike declared it an unplanned learning experience. Another time, he lit 3 Roman candles at once, held them in both hands like magical wands of doom, and shouted, "4! Science!" before sprinting into the street. You've never run faster. You've never been prouder to be part of something so incredibly, stupidly awesome. There are injuries, of course. A singed eyebrow here, a blistered thumb there. One kid got a piece of ash in his eye and had to wear an eye patch for a week. He was fine, also slightly cooler afterward. Scars are currency in the summer economy. Mike's crowning achievement is the fireworks finale, a name he gave to taping 5 different types of explosives together, lighting them all at once, and hurling the bundle into an abandoned sandbox. The result? A crater, a mild ringing in your ears, and one furious squirrel that had been using the sandbox as a condo. After each show, you pinky swear not to tell. Big Mike insists it's about brotherhood and trust. But really, it's because he doesn't want your parents to take away his stash. You oblige. Mostly because if they found out what you were doing, you'd be grounded until your 30s. And yet, somehow, you survive. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's divine intervention. Or maybe it's that Big Mike, despite the bravado and burned fingers, always makes sure someone has a hose nearby. Just in case. Because in the 1970s, neighborhood legends weren't influencers, they were wild cards in high tops with access to black market fireworks and a complete disregard for their own safety. They didn't go viral, they just were. And thanks to Big Mike, you learned 3 valuable lessons. Never light a fuse without a plan. Always dive toward the sidewalk. Not the shrubs and physics. Physics is mostly just about not being in the blast zone. Vacation time means piling into a station wagon that smells like melted crayons and existential dread. There are no seatbelts, just invisible boundaries and endless negotiations over who gets the good window. Your only entertainment is the license plate game, your Walkman, if you're rich, and poking your siblings until someone cries. The highlight of every trip is stopping at a rest area that's somehow stickier than your own house. It starts with the packing. Your parents cram half the house into the back, like they're preparing for the Oregon Trail. A cooler full of sandwich parts, half a roll of paper towels, and enough duct tape to qualify for an emergency moon landing. You bring snacks, mostly crushed, but essential. Funyuns, grape, bubble yum, and something that might have once been a granola bar, but now resembles a gravel puck. The car is a sensory experience. The back seat is vinyl and absorbs heat like the surface of Venus. You sit down and immediately regret having legs. Skin sticks, clothes fuse to limbs, and the only known cure is peeling yourself off with the sound of 1,000 curses. Someone opens a window, and your dad yells that it messes with the airflow. No one knows what that means, but you obey. Air conditioning? That's for luxury cars and game shows. You get 2 over 55 cooling, 2 windows down at 55 miles per hour. It works until a passing semi blows your mad libs out the window, and someone accuses someone else of hogging the air. The car stereo plays whatever tape your parents have on rotation. The Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, or something that sounds like a haunted xylophone. You beg to change it. Your request is ignored. You try singing. You're told to stop. You hum louder. A slap fight breaks out. Your mum turns around with the look, and peace is restored. Boundaries in the back seat are sacred. There's an invisible line down the middle, enforced with elbows and passive aggression. If someone crosses it, it's war. Pillows are used as barricades. Stuffed animals become border guards. Someone draws an actual line with a marker, which only escalates the tension. Games help. You count cows. You play I Spy, until everyone realizes the only thing to spy is corn. You spot out-of-state license plates and make up stories about the drivers. That one's definitely a spy. That guy's hiding a kangaroo in his trunk. You're not sure why. It doesn't matter. Bathroom breaks are rare and unpredictable. You ask to stop, and your dad says, "There's one coming up in 27 miles." When you do stop, The rest area is part crime scene, part sauna. The toilet paper is missing, the vending machine has been looted, and the air smells like regret. Still, you stretch your legs, marvel at the world outside the vinyl furnace, and race back to the car because someone else is eyeing your window seat. Lunch is eaten roadside or in the parking lot of a gas station named something like Stinky Pete's. Sandwiches are soggy, drinks are warm. Everything tastes faintly like mustard and road dust. You spill something. You blame the car. It accepts no responsibility. Eventually, everyone falls asleep except the driver. Your head lolls against the window. You dream of swimming pools, air conditioning, and a world where the seatbelt isn't just buried under snacks and despair. Because in the 1970s, road trips weren't vacations. They were quests. Hot, loud, cramped quests powered by Pringles, bickering, and hope. You didn't go to find yourself. You went to prove you could survive 3 states without losing your mind or your place in the back seat. And if you made it without a nosebleed, a sunburn, or a full-blown family feud, that, my friend, was the real souvenir. There's a chest freezer in the basement, and its contents are as mysterious as they are old. Popsicles from a forgotten summer, ancient ice cream sandwiches fused to the wall, and a Tupperware that might contain a science experiment. You venture down, flashlight in hand, on a quest for dessert, and possibly your last will and testament. The basement is colder than outer space, but at least nothing down there smells like gasoline. Yet. The basement freezer is a relic of Cold War paranoia and Midwestern practicality. A massive, white vault that hums ominously and looks like it could store both family dinners and classified documents. It sits in the corner like an Arctic tomb, covered in condensation and dust, surrounded by a supporting cast of abandoned paint cans and half-inflated pool toys. You open the creaky basement door like you're descending into a dungeon. The light switch is somewhere near the top, but it never works. Instead, you carry a flashlight, or better yet, the huge yellow camping lantern that smells like melted batteries. You creep down the stairs with the stealth of a burglar and the heart rate of someone walking into a live crime scene. The air grows colder with every step. Not just chilly, cryogenic. The basement's natural temperature is left your soul behind. You can see your breath. You pull your shirt over your face like it's going to protect you from freezer ghosts. You reach the chest freezer, slowly unlatch the lid, and brace yourself. The cold fog rolls out like you've just opened a portal to Narnia. If Narnia smelled like overripe meat and freezer-burned regret. Your fingers go numb immediately. You dig past multiple layers of unidentified frost-covered packages that are either pork chops or bricks of uranium. Somewhere near the bottom, you find what you're looking for. A box of popsicles from a brand that hasn't existed since the Carter administration. The box is soggy. The flavors are abstract. You pick the one that looks the least threatening, chip the ice off with a spoon handle, and hope for the best. You've never been more excited to eat something partially thawed and vaguely purple. Along the way, you make other discoveries. A mystery Tupperware container that has lost all labeling and color, its contents fully encased in a crystalline tomb. Your mom says it's chilly. You suspect alien eggs. There's also a tub of ice cream that's been there since the bicentennial. You try to scoop it, but it's harder than concrete and twice as dangerous. The spoon bends. You consider using a screwdriver. At some point, you find a single fish stick, loose and alone. No box, no siblings, just one sad breadcrumb-covered sentinel frozen in time. You give it a moment of silence and toss it back into the Arctic depths. Then, there are the freezer burns. Every item is either stuck to another or has been fossilized in a layer of frost thick enough to warrant its own excavation team. If Indiana Jones had gone after these popsicles, he'd still be digging. You eventually resurface, dessert in hand, victorious. You run back upstairs like you're escaping the clutches of a creature that slumbers beneath the Maytag logo. Your mom yells something about not leaving the freezer open, and you swear you closed it, but you didn't. You were in a rush. You had priorities, sugar-based priorities. Because in the 1970s, the basement freezer wasn't just an appliance, it was a rite of passage. A frozen treasure chest, a culinary roulette wheel where the prize was either a fudge bar or botulism. And you'd go back tomorrow, because somewhere down there, under the frostbitten meatloaf and jello experiments, is the taste of summer, perfectly preserved, and just a little terrifying. October arrives, and it's time to don a costume made entirely from whatever's in the junk drawer. Plastic masks that suffocate, capes fashioned from curtains, and a pillowcase for maximum candy capacity. You roam the dark streets in a pack, fueled by sugar and the thrill of mild vandalism. Every house hands out treats with a smile or a warning about razor blades. You return home victorious, dump your haul on the carpet, and barter with your siblings for the good stuff. The costume is half effort, half imagination, and fully flammable. You're not a character, you're a vague idea. Are you a ghost? A superhero? A trash bag with dreams? Doesn't matter. You've got face paint that smells like sadness, a mask that fogs up every time you exhale, and a plastic pumpkin bucket that's already cracking under pressure. Your cape is an old pillowcase. Your sword is a ruler covered in aluminum foil. Your confidence is through the roof. You meet your crew just after sunset. No adult supervision, just flashlights with dying batteries and the shared understanding that if you get lost, follow the sound of screaming children and the scent of Tootsie Rolls. The streets are alive. Kids in packs. Parents shouting reminders from porches. Porch lights flickering like lighthouses guiding ships, made of rubber spiders and Snickers bars. The trick-or-treating route is a sacred path. Down the block, cut through the Thompsons' backyard, avoid Mr. Jenkins, who hands out raisins, and hit the cul-de-sac before the good stuff runs out. The houses that give full-size candy bars are legendary. Their names are passed down like folklore. The lady with the hairless cat has king-size Butterfingers. Someone whispers. You adjust your course accordingly. Each knock at the door is a performance. You yell trick or treat with the desperation of a child auditioning for candy-based survival. Some houses try to spook you. Fog machines, spooky music. A dad in a Dracula cape who clearly waited all year for this moment. You pretend to be scared. You are. A little. You earn your candy. And then there's always that house. The one with the lights off, the curtains drawn, and a sign that says no candy. You consider egging it. You don't, because you might get grounded until next Halloween. Instead, you walk by slowly and judge them with your entire soul. Rumors swirl like autumn leaves. Someone got an apple with a razor blade. Someone else says they found a toothbrush in their bag. You ignore these cautionary tales in favor of your next hit. The house giving out homemade popcorn balls, which you accept with the enthusiasm of a child who's never watched a single PSA. By the time you get home, your legs hurt. Your mask smells like your own breath. And your pillowcase is filled with an assortment of sugar and future dental problems. You dump it all onto the living room carpet like a pirate emptying a treasure chest. And now begins the bartering. Your sibling wants your Kit Kats. You want their Reese's. A war is waged. Treaties are made. Deals are struck. Someone cries. Someone steals. You get a Milky Way. You don't even like Milky Way. But now it's personal. Your parents inspect the candy like detectives. Anything unwrapped is confiscated. Anything suspicious goes into the mysterious drawer of eternal waiting. You never see it again. Eventually, you're sent to bed, costume half on, cheeks sticky with sugar, hands stained with red dye number 5. Your stomach aches, your soul is content, because in the 1970s, Halloween wasn't just a holiday. It was a quest, a night of disguises, chaos, and enough sugar to launch a small rocket. You didn't need apps or planning, just a flashlight, a pillowcase, and the ability to outrun the neighbor's dog. And if you made it home with both your candy and your eyebrows, you won. So tonight, as you settle back into your real-world bed, with its soft sheets, temperature control, and absolute lack of anyone huffing gasoline in your vicinity, maybe take a moment to appreciate just how far we've come. Because being a kid in the 1970s was a strange, glorious, and occasionally hazardous experiment in survival and freedom. You navigated a world of questionable safety standards, drank water straight from the garden hose, and somehow lived to tell the tale, even if you still flinch at the scent of gasoline or the sound of a screen door slamming shut. Think of everything you survived. Lawn darts, bike rides without helmets, snack foods that were mostly preservatives, and the unspoken universal code of just be back by dinner. You learned that boredom could be an adventure, that danger was part of the package, and that the weirdest kid on the block might just become your best friend. And you discovered, somewhere between the slurpy brain freeze and the jolt of a too-hot metal slide, that resilience isn't built in comfort. It's forged in scraped knees, near misses, and moments of collective idiocy that somehow became the best stories. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, spare a small, grateful thought for the chaos and comedy of your childhood, for parents who meant well but mostly hoped you'd make it home in one piece, for friends who dared you to be a little braver, a little wilder, and occasionally a little dumber, and for a world that, in all its imperfections, taught you to laugh at disaster, to trust your gut, and to avoid any group activity involving gasoline cans. Because history isn't just what you read in books. It's the scars on your knees, the weird taste of hose water, and the memories of days when anything was possible, and a little danger was just another part of being alive. So tuck in, take a deep breath, preferably not near an open can of gas, and let your mind wander. You made it through the 1970s. You can handle anything. Sleep well, and may your dreams be free of jarts, vinyl seats, and suspiciously sticky Slurpee machines. Good night.